Got it.
I'm gonna leave again.
Oh, wait.
Test pattern.
Where's test pattern?
There it is.
Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour. Our guest this evening is Screamish Joy, returning again for a fantastic evening. Our usual suspects are here, the not ready for cable news players, Susie Sheeler, Maggie Duvall, Scoop Sweeney, that's me and the weird godlight coming down. And over in South Austin, that's John Lebkowski. Hello, John.
We just look so professional. There were a couple of minutes there that we were streaming, and it was like us sitting very quietly.
I know. I was
Mashed
like,
up
is
the
my
test
sound
pattern
off?
for a minute and
Literally.
let it sit for a minute to make sure that everybody knew it was us, and then I took it off. Wayne's World. Wayne's World.
How's everybody doing?
Very well.
good.
Very well. Thanks for having me back, y'all. I really
Yeah.
appreciate being invited back.
Thanks for
Yeah.
coming back. We'll keep inviting you back.
Yes, absolutely. Did everybody have a good week since the last time we all hung out?
We just moved
Well,
past that question.
things
Okay,
are
we're
a little
gonna-
crazy right now.
Yeah, they are.
I'm a little worried about y'all in Texas. So,
So are we.
yeah.
Well, there's something to worry about there, I guess, because today we made a quick run to the store and people were not wearing masks.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I've gone back to doing the curbside stuff. I did curbside at Central Market North, and it was great. Those people are wonderful. I showed up. I texted, my location, and the woman comes out, and she already had my stuff. She knew it was me. She came out, like, "Are you psychic?" So I love those people. But
Did you get Chili's?
Did that wait?
Did you get Chili's?
No, they had just fired up the roasting area.
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
told
say
me
we're
that.
just about there, right? Yeah, we're almost
It's
there.
open season,
I didn't
opening season.
because-
Maggie can just ship them to us. She's right there in the
Right.
big middle of it.
Yeah, I just bought like 3 big tubs of them for $12. And Hunter and I are gonna, I've got one of those seal a meal things, so we're starting to freeze them all, and yeah, it's really. I made my first chili-rellenos of the season a couple nights ago, and the difference between I'd forgotten this. The difference between getting them in Austin and getting them here, those chilies were so juicy and meaty and.
Oh, rub it in.
Right.
You're going to have
And
to.
so how's that Tex-Mex, Maggie? Let's talk Tex-Mex a minute.
Yeah, I haven't, no Tex-Mex up here, but there are a number of interior Mexican restaurants here.
That's a
in
different
Dallas.
story, and those are
Right.
good. Those are
Right,
killer
right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do every once in a while. I do miss my Tex-Mex, but I'll come
So
visit.
Scoop and Clarissa, Marcia and I and Susie and maybe Screamish Joy too. We could all jump into a van and head to Taos.
Right.
We'll
I
be
love
there
that
in
story.
Right
about
away.
9 hours.
We're ready for it.
I'm sure they'll check us out at the border on the way back. They don't care if we're bringing in drugs or chili peppers, but they're looking for immigrants. Yeah, that's the.
Right.
That's
You gotta make sure you go through mule shoot. Mule.
And Chama.
Good old mule shoot. Yeah.
So this week has the past couple of weeks have been really like you guys said, have been really, really weird and challenging. And one of the things that I found really fucking annoying is how everyone came down on Simone Biles for her opting to take care of her mental health and stepping back and saying, you know, I'm only X amount of years old. Don't put the weight of America on me, you know. And we have this what I consider a very American theme, that we make ourselves push past the pain. You don't think about it. You just do it, and you do it because you're a team player and you want to be number one. And
don't be a snowflake.
Exactly. Especially for guys, but for a woman who's finally made it this far and is, you know, exalted almost, which she should be. You know, I mean, she's amazing, and what she's done is I think a huge step for the mental health community.
If you listen to the NBC coverage, it's Jingo City there. It's like, let's root for nothing but the Americans. You know, we'll pretend that those other people aren't even there. And boy, it gets overwhelming after a while. I just turn it off. It's like, I'll just wait and see who wins later, because listening to the ongoing, oh, we got to get them Americans in there. We're making medals. Who cares?
USA, USA. I hate that. I've hated that forever. Anyway.
Wrap yourself in the flag.
Yeah. Well, so because of that happening, and that being a very interesting, you know, mental health being a big topic, and hoping people would consider it as injurious as a physical, you know, pain. Stephanie wrote Screamish Joy wrote a very, very powerful, in my opinion, poem. And I would really like just to start off maybe a conversation about what we're talking about with that poem. If you'd read that for us, Screamish, that would be awesome.
I will, and with the caveat that I'm not a poet performance artist.
Okay.
So the poem is called Rising. She rises and twists and flips until we twist her into our twisted version of what she should be. Flip for us again and forget her pain. Forget the betrayal from her own game. Just make us sure we're her greatest fan. As long as we're winning, she's rising from sand, rising higher and higher to grasp one more gold. Shut up with your feelings and do what you're told. And we love her for it. We watch raptly like raptors as she's twisting insanely, lighting our fire, carrying our torch along with the weight of the world. It doesn't even matter how her story unfurled. Just risk higher and higher, twist for us all. But don't expect us to care when she finally falls. Just hear how quickly we judge her choices, ranting and raging indignant voices. She's a quitter, not a champion, not a leader. And they couldn't be more wrong, because the games are all changing and she's the new strong. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm staying in her corner and I'm singing her song.
That was really nice.
Very nice.
Thank
Right
you.
on.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
she's that it just rings so true, you know. And I mean, and just that it's such a microcosm of such a bigger fucking thing, right?
Yeah,
Way bigger issue.
I think it speaks to a lot of different issues, honestly, all at once, and maybe they can all funnel up into one thing. But for me, what really struck me was, and what really made me want to write it and want to think about it, was to question our values, and to question our values around winning and what it means to actually win. And the ideal that winning is only through sort of like some physical heroic measure, that there's no other mechanisms of winning in our society, that we don't value, say, the ideal that she was, you know, combating many things, not just carrying the weight of the world, not just overcoming sexual abuse, not just standing up as a leader for the entire team, not being there so she could be a leader for these younger women who had already watched their entire sport betray them in a brutal way. You know, being betrayed by her sport, both at the Olympic level, at the IOC level, by having her scores reduced. Like, there were so many things going on
and that would have all in and of themselves, any one of them, been enough of a reason for her to say, hey, I am not prepared to go on stage and perform right now and feel safe about it. But the fact that she was actually having what was something that was very recognized in her own sport, the twisties, as they were describing, and that I think I recently heard that she had also had a loss in her family. Like, there were just so many things going on, and all I could think is, if she had torn a ligament, nobody would have thought, we would have been like, God, I hope the drugs that they shoot her up with work well enough so she can go out there and crush her leg, but like, if she couldn't have competed, it wouldn't have been like, oh, she's worthless and not a leader because she tore that ligament. And
like
so
the
all
Carrie
of that,
Strug thing.
Yeah, like the Carrie Strug thing, all of that really just kind of hit me really hard. And I started posting about it. I just started posting about it.
And I think it dovetails into our, this disease of entitlement. You owe me. You owe me. You function on this planet to serve me. It's just like, wow, seriously. And when she stood for herself, I cried, because the example she gave to so many young women, all of us, but so many young women, that like, whoa, I can say no. Like, hey, talk about rape culture. No,
right?
No,
right?
No, this is the boundary. No more.
And it's interesting because the arguments, if you can believe it, that I've actually had to have online about this kind of crap is all from men.
Right.
I don't see any women, and they're all my age, your age,
That's
our age,
true.
in the 50s or so, right? And they're like, oh no, man, should have totally, what a loser,
Yeah, I saw somebody made a comment, she picked up her ball and went and took it home, to which I responded, there's no balls in gymnastics. Let's start there. She did not do that. She did not pick up her ball, so to speak, and take it home. She sat on the sideline and cheered on her team. Right. She was absolutely present and didn't like go sulking off. Like, I don't know. It just that really upset me a lot.
Well,
that she was characterized that way.
Didn't she go out and win a medal a couple of days later?
Yeah,
of course she did.
Yep.
I mean, she was already a champion. Right. She was already a champion. She was already medal. She was fully, she had nothing to prove to us.
Well, I was encouraged by the blowback against these people like the Fox fools who were coming down on her and, making her seem unpatriotic. And the blowback caused them to all back off and backpedal and delete posts. And it's time for these folks to realize it's not okay.
Yeah.
You guys know where Simone Biles is from?
Yeah, isn't she from here?
She's from Spring, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came home today. I watched her landing. She got like a very, very hero's welcome.
Hey, look, it's Tom Jennings.
All right, I thought I was going to get a calendar link, but I'm crashing the party.
I sent you a link,
Let me take my pants off.
We were supposed to do it on the 10th, but we welcome you to join us right here now.
He's like, that's all I needed. Out.
I think he was trying out the link.
I also wanted to, you said something earlier about,
Wait, did that just happen? Was that a real thing?
Yeah,
that was a real thing.
That's one of our friends.
The magical Tom Jennings. And
that was awesome. I was like, wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been thinking a lot about this whole like hero's journey thing. That's the masculine hero's journey, right?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and so many authors are, exploring now the feminine journey, and and to me, the heroism, like slaying the beast, in my mind, was her standing up the way she did.
It was.
Yeah,
it was, and I had a man bring that very thing up, talking about that, all of the epic stories of history, were about overcoming, the sin. I'm like, well, from your point of view,
right.
They were like, I mean, yeah, I get that. I get that that's what you were taught, but I correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a lot of forgotten, maybe set aside stories in history that we have not been taught, that we don't talk about, and just that ideal of like, and I literally asked him, like, who do you think she was, like, what do you think she was overcoming in that moment? Like,
it's important to acknowledge that myths are not fucking true a lot of the time. A myth is a myth, and you have all kinds of myths about things that happen. Sometimes when you dig in, you find out that's not what really happened, and there are a lot of myths that exist to make certain people, to elevate them in some way, from being just ordinary human saps, which most of us are. And guys are really bad about that. Men are really bad about trying to pump themselves up. But people do that a lot.
Search for
when
ego.
We talk about like the hero as an archetype, and we talk about archetypes in general, they're really ultimately, at the end of the day, based on the ego, no matter what the archetype is. The archetype is based on the individual, and it's based on the ego, and there's feminine and masculine archetypes. But I think we are moving to a space on a more universal level where that individual archetype is sort of, I think the social communal archetypes are starting to develop. I think that the archetypes are elevating beyond just the individual ego and the individual self. And so what Simone did, to me, went above and beyond just her and her choice and her ego. She was making a choice for literally an entire social group of people, like just all the young girls that she spoke to, she created a social archetype in that moment of saying, hey, we can rise above this together and support each other. Or the two guys that chose to share the medal, like the two high jumpers. Susie, were you not like, and it's like, oh my God, high jumpers, because me and Susie high jumped in high school. And I thought, no way.
I wish I could have seen that.
They didn't.
No, you don't.
They
It was
could have done a
horrible.
jump off. Oh no, we were awesome. No, they could have done a jump off, but they were friends. And I'm thinking to myself, no way would I have wanted to do a jump off. I'm like, no way. I would have been like, and they're like, they were told that they could share the medal. And I mean, they were elated. They jumped into each other's arms. And I thought, that's a social archetype right there. That's not an individual, that's a social archetype of sharing that glory, sharing that joy, not forcing one or the other to be the winner is like. And so anyway, that's something else that has struck me about some of the things I've seen at these games is these individual archetypes, they're losing their power, and these social archetypes are starting to really develop power, and when we see these uprisings of different groups, whether it's Black Lives Matter or, the queer community or, all these groups that have just been sort of left behind and abused and ignored or whatever it is, they're creating social archetypes and the energy that they're building. They really are.
And another way to look at the Simone Biles thing is that she is part of a team.
Yes.
And part of her judgment was that if she wasn't up to par, and if she really couldn't do the thing that she needed to do there, if she really felt that there was going to be a problem for her, then number one, it's not best for the team if she goes ahead and pursues it. And number two, the team is there to pursue it without her.
Yeah, and they picked up that it's like if she had really hurt them by making that choice, they wouldn't have totally kicked out, which they did, And
this is so above and beyond that short-sightedness of our consumer culture that's about what's here now instead of like thinking of the long view.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've been thinking about a lot is that, I'm really inspired by what you said about, she's thinking of these team members. And one of the main reasons I dropped out of the corporate culture in 1995 was I was so sick of middle management, their egos, right? So you had all this beautiful talent that wanted to work together and wanted the creative will it wanted to express, but then you had to deal with this whole layer of no, if it's not making me look good, I don't want it. Or I'm going to like do horrible things to make sure that you can't. It made me sick. I was physically ill working in that environment.
I'm high-fiving you right now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's a real thing.
Been there.
Right.
Yeah.
And women take a brunt of it because women, I think in the corporate environment, they try to come in and buffer and protect a lot.
Right.
I know I was a senior executive and I managed creatives, which are like, in a financial services world. So it's like managing like soft puppies inside of like, a jagged, like, horrible space, whatever. It's like, and I wanted to protect those creatives so they could do their jobs, like I knew what they needed to do their jobs and they needed to be nurtured in a particular way. That didn't mean that they needed to be coddled or anything. They were badass and they kicked ass all over the place. They just needed a different mechanism of functioning than maybe the IT guys did, or maybe the, underwriting team did, or, whatever. It's like different ways of functioning, but in that space and in that environment and in that patriarchal corporate structure, it was very challenging. And so I did insert myself a lot of times to just take that emotional stuff on so that they could do their job.
Yeah. And you're taking the kind of in Simone, drawing the line in the sand. Here's the boundary. You were being the boundary for the people you were protecting. Yes. But then like how you suffer those slings and arrows, right? It's a hell of a lot. Absolutely.
It's unsustainable for our society as a whole. Right. I mean, as we're shifting as a society and we're seeing, these shifts that are being forced upon us, whether we like it or not, COVID lockdowns are forcing us to do things. And obviously we're resistant, to like, I'm sorry, let me be clear. We're not resistant to COVID, y'all. Okay.
Well, actually, there's a point to be made about that, which I really wanted to mention tonight. This might be a good place to mention it, is that resistance is an important word because people imagine that when they get a vaccine, it's going to make them immune. And they're upset when it doesn't. But it doesn't create immunity, it creates resistance. So if we're vaccinated, we are resistant to COVID, but we're not immune to it.
You are correct about that.
Right.
I think that's a good distinction. But to be unvaccinated, you are not.
If you're unvaccinated, you're on your way to the grave.
Is it the same? Does the same word inoculated though? What does that word mean? Does that word mean that you won't get it? Like I'm inoculated against smallpox.
No, that's just a vaccine.
That's just the
nature vaccine. You're infected.
It's just the act of getting the vaccine, you've been inoculated. But what the vaccine does is, in almost all cases, it supports your immune system. It helps your immune system recognize the enemy, basically, so that the immune system will not be surprised when these germs show up, these viruses. And that's kind of what the COVID thing does. And the mRNA vaccines are kind of generalized so that they kind of continue working against the variants. Sometimes if you're using a very specific vaccine, like some of the flu vaccines, if you don't have a vaccine against a specific virus, it's not as successful. But with the COVID vaccines, they are a little more general because they're just sort of a general structure. And as long as the structure that your body has learned to recognize is similar to the structure of the virus that hits you, then it can be somewhat effective against the virus. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it like causes the virus to explode or go away or disappear. The virus gets into your body and your body deals with it. And part of dealing with it is an immune response, which may mean you get sick. And even if you've been vaccinated, you may get sick. But you won't get as sick because the virus is not going to be able to get past your defenses in the same way it would if it was totally unrecognized.
Yeah, and the anti-vaxxers are picking up on that and saying, that's the reason why I'm not getting vaccinated, including, great heroes like Governor Who. That's my favorite thing of today. Biden described Governor DeSantis as Governor Who when he was asked about him.
Governor who?
Yeah, I pictured him being dressed in Doctor Who garb. You know.
That's hilarious.
Well, the anti-vaxxers are upset about the fact that Bill Gates is injecting a microchip into their body, but so what?
He's been doing that for decades.
Yeah, he's
Did
been
you
doing
guys
that through
hear
Cheerios.
Did you hear that Marjorie Taylor Greene said, hey, you know what, Alabama, way to go on not being vaccinated, being the least vaccinated state. And if some state policeman comes to your door and offers you a vaccine, exercise your Second Amendment.
Oh, good. Let's go start shooting law enforcement. That's a good one.
So they're just going to come.
Don't they support the blue? I'm so confused.
I'm like, is this where we say blue lives matter? I can't remember.
Well, it won't be a- I know.
I'm
It's
super
like-
confused.
Well,
They're not even
Although
forcing
technically,
it.
I won't even.
Does
It-
this
it-
mean that
it's
if
like a
Marjorie
mass-
Taylor Greene comes to my door, I should exercise the Second Amendment?
Oh, in a
This-
heartbeat.
This
Well,
mass insanity. I read something yesterday, and I want to like when I have a brain this weekend when it's not so busy, I want to like dig down deeper. But something I was reading that people who have been so staunchly anti-vax that are sick and in ICU now are like willing to die, right? They're like, because I stood by my principles. And I'm like, what mad world is this? Like that you were, I mean, I bet they have been wonderful to be in relationships with
Oh, you know it.
because they could never admit any fault, right? It's like, how could you be so fucking sick?
I'm
I mean,
smarter
in the-
than science.
They-
I'm smarter than the government. I'm smarter than everyone. I can
Oh my
outgun the
God, it's so
government. That's why I have to have
This
guns.
this is not something that happened overnight. This has been a systemic de-education of our society for quite some time, and we are now seeing it come to fruition. So
Right.
it's
Yep.
you know, we didn't just wake up like this yesterday. Like the more that we defunded our public school systems, and the more that we have I'm sorry, but and I have people I love and care about that homeschooled, and I'm not trying to judge the entire universe of homeschooling, but I know the further away we get from each other and the commonalities of the lessons that we learn together as a society, the more structure we lose.
Well, and to the homeschool point, this is something I've brought up before. That I had some experiments in secular homeschooling, but two things, there was a lack of socialization. And so, yeah, that connection.
Mhm.
But the other thing that terrified me is that I was on all these homeschool lists, and you would not, well, you would. I mean, when you would look at the textbooks from the Christian right,
Oh,
it's like that's where I was wondering what the result of all this would be, and we have it right now. It's complete denial of anything. It's this, and these people will defend it to the death. This is the truth, and if you could look at that, might be an interesting show down the road. If I could somehow get my hands on some of these textbooks so we could just read from it together,
there was
story time.
one. What was that? There was one, I can't remember. I think it was the Graham. Don't they have the university? Yeah. So
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham.
For the
and
Liberty
Franklin,
University.
and
Yeah,
Franklin
Liberty,
Graham,
yeah,
who's in
yeah.
all kinds of trouble. There was a textbook that some guy took pictures of, and he was like, "This is real,"
Right.
and because he was at the school in the class, and it showed the arc, like to scale with dinosaurs and people, to show how it got on there.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was a literal like textbook showing how this was a possible thing. And it was the first time I had ever heard that dinosaurs were on the ark. But then I did not know
No,
that.
I know you're right. I'm
They
thinking
were
about it.
not, because they'd be here now if they'd been on the
And because no one was on an ark.
The two of them.
Because no one was on an ark.
Well, isn't there a place in, of course, North Texas, where you can go on a tour of, it's like the 6,000 years the Earth has existed, and it's Jesus with dinosaurs and dinosaurs on arks or something like that.
Dioramas. I've seen pictures of they're frightening. frightening.
Right. Yeah. I think it's up near Glen Rose or something like that.
I don't know that one, but now I want to go see it.
Yeah, you have to find when you see it, it'll burn an image in your brain that you'll never get rid of.
I'm already excited.
Right.
Let's make a road trip, day trip.
Okay.
I bet John's looking it up right now. I can see that look on his face.
Well, this is what I was looking for.
Aw.
Excellent.
Ride 'em, cowboy.
Get
You
him.
would think that his little hands would hold his feet like stirrups, like they could go
Yeah.
back to the.
You know, the funny thing about that is that when I looked for that, let me show you this. You would think that that would be a fairly rare
What
thing.
did you
but
like
it
type in?
turns
Jesus
out that
riding a
look how many.
dinosaur?
There's like all this fan art. No, it's a big deal.
Look at all this.
It's a real big deal. Look, that's my
Oh.
favorite where he's holding him, and it's
Like a layout. Wait, scroll back up for a second.
yeah, go up a little bit. Where he's
That
holding
one. That
Oh,
one
yeah,
right
the
there.
baby one.
baby.
Baby one.
Oh, that's really
Better than the manger scene there. I mean,
Right. Right.
Oh my gosh.
Aw, didn't that just like bring a tear?
Wow. How
Those
sweet.
were the ones they put on the ark because the other ones were way too big.
Hey, I don't think they could have made Jurassic Park if the dinosaurs hadn't been on the ark.
Yeah.
I think they put the ark in park. I'm serious.
Oh yeah. So John, look up creationevidence.org.
Creation evidence. Oh, it comes right up.
It's the
too.
Creation Evidence Museum of Texas.
Is it still do they still believe in intelligent design?
Sure, everybody does, don't they?
Well,
No.
wait a minute.
You think design is stupid? No.
yeah, that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Huh. Evidence.
Right.
Does
What?
this cover flat Earth? Hold on. Does this cover flat
So
Earth?
they're
If this
digging
doesn't
up
cover flat Earth,
dinosaurs
then
from
this
the dinosaurs that were roaming the earth 4,000 years ago.
Right. 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
4,000.
Wow. This is pretty
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. You have to do a location shoot of Plutopia Live.
That would be awesome. I'm sorry, my aunt just called and I just wanted to make sure she's okay. All right. So let's try to just because I love the way we go off and riff and everything, but let's come back just for a second to the pressure and the and what again I think is
Susie, you're
something-
putting too much pressure on us.
I
It's making
think-
me anxious.
well, I'm going to pressure you to relax. But no, I think it's a very, I do think it's a very American thing. I don't think that, and possibly a Russian thing, but I don't know enough about it. I know that if you're going to be an Olympic star or a dancer, they do push you quite hard, I guess, from all the movies I've seen.
Oh yeah.
I've never been there, but like the Brits, I don't do that. You know, I mean, the French don't do that. The French will
Mhm.
go the fuck home.
Right.
Are we qualifying like in the Western sort of
Yeah.
world, an American thing, right?
Yes,
'Cause
I mean,
absolutely.
I think the question
okay. I
is,
just wanted to be
I
clear.
can't
'cause I'm
speak
like,
from any. I can't
the-
speak from any other culture.
yeah.
the
okay,
question
that's-
is to what extent do you have a choice in the matter? You know, because people do things that are painful and they're difficult
Mhm.
and they achieve a lot. And sometimes they want to have somebody who's pushing them to do that because they know it's hard for them to do it themselves. But on the other hand, sometimes you have situations where somebody is really being pushed into something they don't want to do or they don't care that much about. Just because somebody recognizes you have this talent and they insist that you use your talent even though you don't care anything about it yourself.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that is forcing somebody to do something against their will, which, as we all know, is not a good thing.
To be honest, a lot of that generally starts with parents. I mean, they're identifying those talents in their kids, and a lot of parents will live vicariously through their children, and maybe for the best intention, maybe, for all the best reasons. In truth, I think that we have such a system that, again, where our value systems lie, that we get so caught up in that you see parents put these other values ahead of the value of their child, basically,
Right.
the value of their own child's needs. And they start to conflate them, and they start to confuse them, and they start thinking, well, this is more important because we've invested so much, or we've done so much, and to back off at this point, what would that mean? And what would that, and those are real legitimate concerns. It's like, I think I think, frankly, for me, a big crux of things has a lot to do with capitalism and money. And when we start bringing that aspect of money into, what is a life worth, and then we can go all the way down the line on that. And let's talk about essential workers and what we value. I mean, because that's really who's being forced to do what. I know a lot of people who work their asses off in ways that are killing them every single day for a lot less than what Simone Biles would get, working her. I mean, so I just think our value systems are very skewed, and we have to question what it means to win and what it means to be losing.
Well, there's another thing that occurs to me, which is that we put pressure on people to be our heroes, right?
Yes.
I'm thinking about, I knew a guy who was like kind of like a star football player at this high school, and I just moved to town, and I befriended him. I went over to his house, and he was showing me weird mail he would get from people telling him how to lead his social life, or that he really had to stay with the particular girlfriend or whatever. It was like people really wanted to manage his life for him because they wanted him to lead the ideal life that they wanted him to lead, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that there's an element of that in our culture. I don't know exactly what to do about it, but I know it's there, and it feels sick. It feels like people invest themselves in other people versus living in their own lives.
To that point, it's just been because I got a lot of pressure put on me when I was a kid because I was a brainiac, and I had all these expectations put on me, and it was like, you need to do this, you need to do that, and I never wanted to do it to my daughter. Right. I never thought I'd have kids, but hey, I had a daughter, and it was really interesting observing.
A great daughter. A great daughter.
Great, a great daughter. Absolutely. And we have to have her on the show to talk about some interesting things, which I'll go into later. But it was really interesting to me because it was creepy when I'd be in school and I would see, one of the phrases she and I both hate and loathe with great passion is mini me. People would say, she's your mini me, like, fuck you. Like, no, she's her own person. I'm my own person, right? I never needed her to, I've worked really hard to have a fulfilling life where I'm, in my creativity, and, I'm not living through my daughter, I'm living through myself, right? And what kind of paradigm that sets up so it lets her explore her life the way she wants to do it. But I would see all these other parents, and I'd learn about these other kids, that would share to my daughter or whatever. They're like heartbroken because they're terrified they're going to fuck up and their parents aren't going to love them anymore because they're not the Wunderkind. They've been programmed to be the Wunderkind, to show how amazing the parents are. What a horrible thing, going back to Simone Biles again.
Yeah.
To put all her expectations on one person and her standing up and saying, like, screw you. No, my life is important to me and my health is important to me. So go jump off a bridge or something.
I feel that Venus Williams did that. She just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she was number one. And then she plays doubles now. She's just like, I'm not going to do that. Right. But I don't know how Serena does it, but it's the same mentality. And her father did that to them.
Right. Right.
I think
Beyonce.
Simone Biles was really great in the way that she stood up for herself.
Yeah.
She really didn't let anybody back her down.
The
She
thing
didn't let
is
anybody.
the reason she could stand up for herself like that is because she has a great support system. Like
Right.
I guarantee you, her family supported her, and the people around her supported her, and it gave her, you know, a more broken person wouldn't have been able to do that. And that, you know, I mean, even I went back and rewatched, you know, we brought up the Carrie Strug video recently. Like I went back and rewatched that. And it's like, you look at her, look at him and say, do I have to do this? And I went and read about it a lot. And what made me so angry was we already had the gold. She did not have to do that. We already had the gold. Her score did not. Now, I mean, she got the gold, and I'm not going to decide for Carrie Strug whether or not she would have made that choice again or not in her life or whatever. But in that moment, at that time, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. And she didn't have a choice. She didn't have a choice. And so, you know, that was not a great support system. And that, frankly, was the same coach that, you know, paid Nasser. I mean, you know,
to rape all of his
maybe he didn't pay him, but whatever, they were all in that together, whatever, like they all knew, whatever. I don't care. I don't think, I'm sorry.
Bella Carolla, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Bella
Yes.
and his wife, Bella and Marta. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, they got what they were paid to get. You know, so it's like I don't know how much you know, they were paid to elicit a result, and they got the result at all costs, right? We win at all costs. We win at any cost.
Exactly.
Right? At any cost. Even if we, you know, Carrie Strug never did gymnastics again. It ended her career. She was 18 years old. She could have gone through a couple more Olympics, possibly. She could have coached. She could have done a lot of things. I saw her interviewed 20 years after. It was the only interview I could find with her. She was interviewed 20 years after. It was like the 20-year anniversary of her great jump or whatever. And she was just like, she just didn't seem, you know, they like asked her if her kids did gymnastics. And she's like, well, you know, they do, but, you know, it's not really a big part of our life. And just, I mean, it was just,
wow.
It was just, I don't know. To me, I didn't see the glory. Like, I was like, I don't see it. I wasn't worth it.
It's really interesting too, the way this all played out with Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan and all that.
Yeah.
You know, that's one story I've been totally fascinated with.
Agreed.
And you know, I just feel for her. I don't, you know, even though this horrible thing happened, blah, blah, like all this pressure and, you know, this, I don't know, it's freaking horrible that we're put under this. And you know, that would be a really interesting, like, interview or whatever to talk to like Tonya Harding about Simone Biles. I don't know. That would be really interesting.
Well, she was influenced by that boyfriend, whatever.
Right.
That's a common theme that we see in these horrible stories. And, you know, in, you know, Texas culture, Texas football culture particularly,
Oh my God. Yeah.
that, you know, I grew up in that. I was put in full contact football in third grade.
God.
You know, not because I wanted to, because I was a big kid. It's like, you're a big kid, you're going to play football. And that end of discussion. And I was a geek. I wanted to go and play with my chemistry set. You're like, no, you're going to go out and play full contact football. And when I walked away from it my sophomore year in high school, because I realized there was life after football, and, you know, it was like I joined the Communist Party. And, you know, in fact, I would have been better off if I'd joined the Communist Party, because they could have forgiven that, but walking away from football, you know, because the football programs, they can't give money to good educational programs, but we're going to get a jumbotron for the high school football stadium. It's like,
and then the girls can have whatever the guys don't want.
Right.
So they can have
anything at all.
Yeah, we used to have hand-me-down like sweatsuits and stuff from the guys. Yeah, it was awful.
Right.
You know, I mean, so if you at least you got to play. But still, being forced to do something like that, I think, is another thing that we do a disservice to young men with that kind of shit. I really think
I'm convinced. I have sort of a metaphysical theory. My older brother died when he was 20 of Hodgkin's disease, and my metaphysical theory was that he just decided to check out. Here he was, somebody who loved ham radio and built Heathkits and was into computers and music and all this stuff. So he probably would have ended up owning some kind of tech company, down the road. He was, but my dad, it was the pressure. He had my father's name, and he was, and he was really sensitive. I remember he had these really long, kind of spidery fingers, super sensitive. And it was just, he couldn't take the pressure. Right. And I've always thought of that in that way. And I've talked to a few people who knew him or knew the family, and they're like, you might be right. Because my dad was really high pressure. You're going to go to the Naval Academy. You're going to do this, all this. And he was like, how do you fight that? Right. How do you fight that when you're a sensitive being? Look at gay culture and all the trans kids that are taking their lives every day because they're being forced into this mold. I mean, it's a sickness.
Yeah, the fathers in athletics are usually the worst influence possible. We have these endless videos of the dads taking exception when their child had a flag thrown on them or they were ejected from the game, and they go out and start a fist fight with the officials or with the coaches, and it's like, come on, people, it's a kid's game.
I feel pretty lucky. My parents were pretty hands off. I was actually forced to drink Schlitz beer because my dad was a Schlitz distributor, but that was kind of the worst part of it.
I was a female softball coach when my daughter was 8 and 9 years old. And I say I was a female softball coach because I was the only female softball coach of all of the teams.
Right.
And it was a stunning experience for me to have, honestly. Because I was first of all, I was a kick-ass softball player. I knew I absolutely was a kick-ass softball player, and I was a kick-ass coach. And I took, my first year we did the draft, and I sat with these guys, and they were talking about these 8 and 9-year-old girls as if they were drafting for like the NFL, and talking about them kind of like that, yeah, she's not worth crap, she couldn't throw, she can't do shit, literally like using this language about, and I'm just sitting there like, I'm just like all like in my pigtails, I'm like 26, I'm like, oh my God, this could be fun, and it's like, no. And so I ended up I took a ragtag team. I took all the girls that nobody wanted, including the twins, because one of them was really good, but the other one sucked. And, I took all the kids that nobody wanted. And it was a really, really powerful experience. And I am proud to say that we came in second place out of that league. Nice. And we were the only team in the league to beat the first place team. Right. And the first place, yes, thank you. The first place team, the father was the coach, and he was so hard on his daughter, who was their pitcher. And he was teaching her fast pitch at 9 years old. He was teaching her fast pitch at 9 years old. And in one game, she hit one of my smallest players in the chest. And like almost injured her, and I remember going up to him afterwards and saying, hey, you might want to teach her control before you teach her speed, because she's going to seriously injure somebody. And his response was, bitch, get your girls ready. We're coming twice as fast next game.
My God.
That was his response when they were 9 years old. God. I mean, and I said, we'll be ready. Thank you. And we beat them the next game. I was like, we will be 100% ready for you. And we did. But I just couldn't believe how, and I was like, this is so, like, these are all females. Like, y'all, I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, none of y'all had sons. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know what else to do. It was just, I'll just never forget just how competitive it was, how hostile it was, and it was female sports. It was 8-year-old girl sports. Oh my God. And they were really like that. I will end this story on one note, that the one game that I had to ump because I hate umping because I'm a Libra and that's like way too much. I'm like, no, go either way. Okay, but I had to ump, and his daughter was playing and she was pitching and he was screaming at her so loud. And I got to witness this, that she stopped and she threw her ball down on the mound and said, "Shut up," and walked off to the other team's dugout.
Good for her.
Wow.
Good for her.
And I just could think, man, he put that pressure on her so she was 9.
And she broke at 9.
She broke at
That
9.
was a hell of a reckoning for the next 10 years.
Thank you. That's what I thought too. I thought, God, I hope somebody is there to help that poor girl like age out through this. But that's the environment, like that Susie and I were, as females, raised in that kind of a competitive environment. We were raised to compete as tough as the guys were, and that's fine if that's what you want.
Right.
But
right.
I dropped out my sophomore year. But I
didn't realize you were an athlete, Susie.
Little. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I used to play everything.
We did high jump, we did basketball, we did volleyball, we did softball. I would not do soccer because my last name was Walker and I am not a runner.
Yeah. I did soccer because I wanted to letter, and it was the first year that we had a soccer team, and I was like, oh well, here. And so I got a letter jacket just because we only had one team and it was varsity.
I lived in Las Vegas for one school year, and I lettered in the high jump in Las Vegas.
Nice.
And there you go.
You do know that the GOP team took the gold in the prevarication contest.
Oh, wonderful! They always do.
No competition in there.
So I'm like, who's competing?
Did you see, by the way, Schumer like jump in front of McConnell? Did you guys see that? He's going up to the podium like, I'm going to make this, and then here comes Schumer. I don't think so.
That was great. That was the Olympic move that should have won Schumer the gold.
Yes.
That was awesome.
It was really nice. It was really, really nice. So what is we're getting close to the end. We got just about 9 minutes or so left.
It's a long time though. We can get a lot done in 9 minutes.
We've been rushing through this. I feel like it's going too fast, honestly, because we're having so much fun. But what do we do going forward with the pressures that we're all feeling, and how we deal with each other? Because right now it is not going well.
Right.
People have forgotten how to be in public, and that's stressing other people out. The anti-vaxxers are stressing people out,
So did you watch Lollapalooza?
Oh God.
Oh,
the visual from that was stunning. It really was.
It was kind of an amazing event, and it was like those crowds. I mean,
yeah, well, that's a
super spreader event deluxe. Yeah.
I mean, what does the rest of the world think of us?
They think we're a bunch of idiots, and
just cut to the chase.
We'll plead guilty to that.
Yeah. And Abbott has said that there can't be a mask mandate, which.
Well, it's those immigrants that are bringing the COVID in there. It's not those God-fearing Republicans out there who don't have any vaccination.
It's all those immigrants that are swimming into Florida.
Flooding the border is what they're doing, and there's been an emergency called by some asshole mayor down there. He's declared an emergency because of the overflow of immigrants.
Well, so you realize what's happened here is, I mean, if you paid attention to Steve Bannon at all, he orchestrated this whole thing. I mean, he said exactly what he was about. Mm-hmm. He said, we're going to flood all the systems with shit, you know, and they've been doing that, and it's been entirely successful. They've just been creating chaos.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how they leverage that, but obviously they have a plan. And I'm not even sure who they are. But
Yeah.
it's not just the GOP. The GOP is like a device. It's like an instrument.
GOP is a puppet for
Yeah.
something else. Yeah.
It's like
They're
a
using the GOP to do whatever the hell it is they're trying to do. I'm not smart enough to understand who's
Who do you-
doing what, but I can tell.
What are your theories? Do you have any theories of who, like, what kind of entity is behind this? Is this Russia? Is this Russia and China? Is this, are they Q?
I have a theory that there are people who have power and money who are not friendly to the idea of like democracy, and who are would prefer that people not have much of a say in the way things go, and that they've been working really hard to dismantle democracies across the world, and that they've been very successful with their psyops.
Those people have been around for decades because we had the pro-Hitler rallies in Madison Square Garden, before the war, and those people are all, and their children, Donald Trump being one of them, are all still around, and they're still having that same agenda of undermine democracy and make this totalitarian form of government look romantic and groovy.
So, I mean, it is
difference
kind of
was-
odd. You have libertarians who talk about the importance of individual freedom and are totally in support of authoritarian governance.
Yeah, I know. How fucking weird is that?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't
Well,
make sense, but I don't think that, 1 + 2 = 3 there.
I might have mentioned it at some point, but one thing that scared me that my very authoritarian father, again, naval intelligence high up in the Pentagon, said is that he admired how Singapore did things.
Oh my God.
So, and this he told me in early 2000s, right? And here is somebody who, when I was growing up, at the dinner table would go off on with all sorts of racial slurs about people of Asian extraction. Yet when he started working for the Pentagon in China, all of a sudden they were the most noble people that had ever been. Their culture was so much older than it. So I never got to pull that all together because he died before I could kind of, and he didn't, I was exiled from the family pretty much. I was disowned. So, but I thought about that often,
We
so
should probably get a little more comfortable with the authoritarian mindset, or with understanding it anyway, because there's you can make a lot of arguments against democracy. It can be inefficient. It can be, kind of crazy. And it certainly makes it hard for people to take the kind of power and money that they might want to take, because there's always people nipping at their heels.
right.
So you can kind of understand their argument, and you kind of got to get into their heads a little bit and
Right.
see that argument very well in order to come back around to the democracy argument, which is sort of like the Winston Churchill thing. Democracy is really the worst form of government, except for all the others. Because democracy acknowledges that everybody's got a stake,
Yep.
and that happens to be true, especially, if you're a good Buddhist, that everything depends on everything else. Everybody depends on everybody else.
The answer to why chaos would be the way to go about making shifts happen is because the solution to chaos is extreme order. And the more you create chaos, the more you have excuse for order. And, the thing about authoritarianism in general is it's not very creative in and of itself. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, it doesn't like creative ideas. It doesn't like anything that comes, and creativity is chaos. And so what we have to recognize that as they create chaos, as that chaos gets created, that's actually true opportunity. And it's not just opportunity for them. And, you know, it has to be recognized that there's power in that chaos. Chaos is a feminine power.
Right.
Pure creativity comes from pure chaos, and females are pure creators. And, you know, so all of those things are not, you know, they're interconnected. They're very interconnected. We have just as much opportunity to take advantage of the chaos that they think that they're causing as they do, so to speak.
Well stated. And I love that. And it's really interesting. Just gonna final thing. A lot of the discussions I've had just this week with an organization I'm working with, I pointed out to the woman owner, the chaos that you're embracing it in a patriarchal mindset. If you really want this to be a matriarchal company, you have to distribute and trust the women working with you. And that's going to be an interesting discussion. So
that sounds exciting. I'd like to talk to you about that just in general.
Yeah, because it takes that chaos and, you know, going back to your resistance, John, which made me think of the word resilience. You know, the vaccine, letting us be resilient. So it's how we deal with the chaos, how we float with it. We're not overwhelmed with the tidal wave. We roll with it.
Excellent end.
And here we are at the very end of our hour.
Rolling into the sunset.
Thank you so much to Screamish Joy.
Yay.
Thank you for having me again.
It was fun.
Enjoyed it.
We will see you next time. You'll be coming back, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So.
Hell yeah.
A regular.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.